So welcome everyone to tonight's meetup, styling and changes to the turnkey application to make it look differently than it does out of the box. So I thought that would be a good idea to go through some of the things that you could do really easy, and of course you could do really advanced things with CSS, as Lars showed a couple of weeks ago, and turning everything upside down and doing whatever you need to have done. But of course, it would be neat to do some changes without any heavy lifting at all. And so that's what I thought we should focus on this session. Okay?
Sure.
Yeah. And as I tend to do, just to show that I'm not being a TV cook, having everything already prepared. I like to start from scratch. Which of course has its downsides when I have this.
Just so you know, you're not sharing your screen right now.
Okay, good. Because I thought I was.
Yeah.
I want to deactivate that one, and I'm going to turn on the presentation, which I do. Let's see. Present entire screen. That one. Like that.
Yep.
And yeah, okay. So the plugin for the click once has been removed by someone. I switch browser just for now. And as I showed a while back, we have this thing that enables us to pull in model sections. So I'm going to start with a complete empty model. I'm going to save this on my temp drive. Do a new folder for this. Just gonna call it something. And having nothing, I can go up here on the help to go to example models, and this will take me to the wiki page where we have quite a few model sections. And one of the model sections that has to do with styling and themes is the one called Theme Builder. So that's a model section, which basically is a modeler file. And I download that one. Show that in the folder. Downloads. I can then, instead of just let's do it like this. If I first have a model with something in it, and then I want to add a model section. I don't want to replace it. I want to keep this. And then I go to open merge and add modeler. So instead of opening some another model and replacing this one, I'm going to merge in something. So I'm going to merge in the theme builder that I downloaded. And as I did that, I got a new diagram and a few things. So I got all this, and of course that's quite the same as we see in this preview on the wiki. And that enables me to run the turnkey prototyper straight off the bat. Should be done there. So what it did was just put a view model available for me here, where I can add what's called a theme, and it's represented by this theme data then. So I'm gonna add one theme and gonna call it new theme 1. And can save that. And basically what has been done and is Dennis and Alex is on the line as well. So what we have done is to pull out a lot of the things that's normally things that you want to change to make a theme, changing all over the views or in all the views of the application. And that includes colors, of course, a lot of different colors, and we pulled those out from the CSS and made them as CSS variables. And as we have them as variables, we may change their values. And also there are a few of measures, like integers, that are set as variables. So we're going to see how we can use these. And I think that if anyone has suggestions of what we should be able to change this way, we are very open to listen to that and work with that. To show how this works, if we just to switch on the base background color variable, we turn it on, and what happens is that everything turns black, because that was the default color for this one. But if I were to set a color, I added a color picker here. I'm going to set that to something really nice, like that. And if I turn it on now, it will look like that. And of course, all these has their own meaning. So the sidebar back color, it's probably this one. Now that turned black, and I can paste in, no, I meant to paste in this color here. So now I can control the colors on that. Let's go for this header one. So that's the navbar color, I guess. Yeah. So that's one way to change colors, and if we have things like if I do a change here, we want to change the colors of the save and cancel, because those are like hurting your eyes sometimes, and if you have a lot of different turnkey sites, they are always identified by the strong colors of the save and cancel button. So you might want to change those. So save action background color. If I turn that on, it would turn black because that's the default color. And I can find a color that would be better suited for my purpose. Maybe that one. And the cancel color, cancel action background color, I want to have that one like maybe a little like that. And now you saw that when I moved over it, it got another color. So there's a lot of different variables to control all of these things. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of things to do with colors, but there's also these measures that we can turn on. So if we want to change the base font size, now it was switched to 12. I think it's 16 or something like that from default. But maybe I want a really tight UI. Let's set that to 8. And then of course there's a lot, too much air in the rows. So I might want to reduce that to like, I don't know. Oh, that was the table, the row height, 9. And turn that on to pull things together. I can't read that. That's a 10. And what we have talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis and Lars, but maybe we should add even more measure variables to control the default setting of this margin. And I think we have this one already. It's
table spacing also in between fields and tables is one thing. Because when you shrink it, you can see now that you have too much space in between the checkboxes and the fields around them.
So what you can do with what you can do with these things is to either, this is the generated CSS that's available to you, and of course you could grab that just by copy paste and put that into the TK user CSS manually, or you could just leave this theme work view in your system to actually set these sys-singleton pointing out to a theme data, because if we have this set when the application starts, the values from this attribute will be used as CSS style as well as other styles that you have. So that's one way to actually influence the look of your application. Let's see, the nav bar height. Turn that into 12. Now this one shrinks. So
I have some I have some input regarding different sizes. Sometimes you want to have different sizes depending on the device size. So you want media breakpoints to make it more compact in mobile, for example.
Yeah, maybe that will be a extension to this, to have 2 or 3 media predefined media queries where these values exist independently per media type, so that you could have different values.
Because now I think it's just the table that will change font size if you change media device size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The current setup.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point, and probably doable. So as these settings are aimed as theming, and when I say theming, I mean that it affects every screen. There's a lot of styling that you might need that is really data oriented, that there is something that like you want to show red numbers when they go below 0 or something like that in economics. And that's a quite other approach to styling. Equally important, but it's different. And there's a solution for that as well, without needing to do any manual CSS. And I thought I'm going to show that as well. So if I go back to this one, and let's say that I create a view model for that's rooted in class 1, and pulling out attribute 1. Let's say there's 2 attributes. I can show 2 styles. And also adding a nested view model class 2, like that. And adding an action so I can get this to show. I'm going to add a class action for this one. And I would need a seeker to actually find the class 1s, but I'd rather go with the auto forms for now. And if I've done this right, I will see so this is actually something that we only react to restart of the application to actually load the theme. I think it's a bit of a demo problem, but not really a runtime problem, I think. So now the theme is loaded, since it's the theme that's selected in this singleton, and that's the pattern that we follow. So if I do a new class 1, and if I wanted to style these independently, I could do that with these features that we have, the style ref on each view model column. So the style ref here, I could go like this: green for that one and blue for that one. Of course, there are no real CSS rules for green and blue yet, so there would be no change. But we have this button out here, which we call styles in model. So that's a way of adding simple data bound styles without the need to write any CSS. And this also works for VPF. So all the things that we can do here show up as styling in VPF. So that's an easy way to keep the style as data. So we get another view, and since I made use of the style green, I'm going to call one of the new styles green. And a style can target one or many things. Let's have this target the whole component and see what that looks like. So I'm going to add the whole component. And then there are properties that I can set on the whole component. And I can set the style color properties, the fill property. But there are no colors. And I have to define my own colors over here. So I'm going to do this one green and call the color green as well. So now I can set the green styles component fill to green. And I'm going to do the other one as well. I call that one for blue. And this one I'm going to say component content instead. And the component content should have a fill. I'm going to create a new color and do that blue. Oh, that's the outer form. Like that. And then I can say that that's blue. So this one should make use of the style green, and this one should make use of the style blue. Saving the model, and okay, that's the first. Did it lose that one? So that's probably an issue that we need to fix. Yeah. Let's see. What should have happened is that let's see, inspect. This is the outer form of view 1, not my design form, which I set the styles on. So this is the one that I actually did. Pew. And so I set the style, the background color to green for the whole component, and you see that includes the label, etc., but not the content. And this one I set to just the component content. And of course you could do a combination of these as well. So there's nothing stopping you to add multiple aspects to a style. And you can control margins and paddings and styles, background and strokes and things like that. Of course, these styles may seem very static, but as we are allowed to do things like is expression on the style reference, we can do things like changing this one to self.attribute 2. So that will take the value of the attribute 2 and apply that as a style. And yeah, it really looks like we're losing the theme style when reloading the model from the quick reload. But showing my point here, now SSS is not an existing style name, but green is, or blue is. So that means that you could drive your, you can communicate with colors and communicate with data in different ways than text. So these are two central ways to influence how your application is perceived and to move away from the standard plain vanilla look that comes out of the box. Comments on this? Lars, have I missed anything that I should have said?
I don't think so, but I think Dennis and Alex knows better. The thing that I'm thinking of is that I wonder how much of like dynamic restyling most want. I mean, a lot of people want to do. I think it's more like communicating data rather than restyling. I mean, it was very popular to be able to skin everything, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or something. But I don't think that is that much anymore, because you want to keep your app looking like your brand. But on the other hand, communicate with colors as when it comes to marking rows and showing buttons and status messages, that at least is, I think, is the main use. But the others here, please, when do you want to use colors and style and fonts? And
I would say having something central is great, so that, you know, the single changing a single object will allow your whole application to change its personality. That's strong. I would question persisting that in a database and having it in the model seems expensive. I would think that would be a job for your UI. But then the other question would be, if this is straightforward enough to do and it's going to have a global impact, that's very powerful. Whereas if you're using other presentation tools to do your presentation layer, you might have to change things, you know, component by component, which is taxing. And of course, you're going to miss something. I don't know if that helps. If this is easily globally applied, then I think it's really powerful. If someone has to take something legacy and change all of their classes to respond to this, that's going to be difficult. Is that fair?
Yeah. So I think like the theme data, it's likely that you change it once, and if you change it once and make up a color scheme that you're happy with, that communicates the style of your application, then you can just harvest that result. And as the CSS is built as the standard CSSs are built as they are now, with this new thing that's available in CSS, it's rather new, but very well supported amongst browsers. It's really, really lightweight what we need to communicate as data. And as Bengt, you were onto that, these could definitely be enclosed in a media query to be different once the screen gets smaller.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the other thing with having the actually styles that can communicate on data, that's really crucial in order to respond to what the users expect. Like Emily, what you have done with the AMP tool to visualize rows that needs to be highlighted for the user to look at, etc., and numbers that are off or going up or going down.
Yes, it's very useful in that application we're building, because it's a application with a lot of modules in it that you do slightly or like very different stuff. So the styling is very different in the different uses.
And that helps the user of the system to know where they are as well, to signal things that now we're in this part of the application.
I guess my concern was more, are we mixing gist with fashion or modernity?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the question that I've been struggling with. But some of the what we normally classify as fashion, like in this case, a style, is actually data because it communicates. As soon as it communicates something, it's basically gist, but it's communicated in another way than textual. And then I would say that when we reached that conclusion, that was when we decided that we needed some way to define how that communication should go. Just as we have some way to define what the texts, the labels on each control should be, we need to have a way to define how the other properties that we communicate with to define what they are. And if we need to define what they are, and they are crucial to the communication, then they really must reside in the model as well. If they don't, they need to be left out and added at a later date, and then you need to know a lot. You need to add a documentation that's like a model, that when this is true, then you should go red, and when this is true, then you should go green. And those are business rules that communicate. And that's
and I have exactly that problem. I do some coloring with the three colors of green, yellow, red based on severity of something. And it's interesting because in ECO, I have to do code-derived properties to actually push the color to WinForms. But technically, I'm breaking the rules there a little bit, but I at least have two attributes. I have a set of Booleans that say what color's which, and the model arbitrates to make sure only one is set, keeps them mutually exclusive. But then I have a derived attribute on top of that to actually push the color to WinForms. But if you ask me, it's a bit of a cheat.
Well, I don't think it's a cheat, because it's communicate. It's a communication, and it's just like if you were to write blue. Of course, if you're a strictly textual person, then you wouldn't need to color the background blue. It would be blue because it says blue. But most of us or most users need to also or want to see that it is blue. And this is then it's just a different channel to communicate on, and then it's part of the data, and then it's part of the model. We don't necessarily need to know how this is done. And actually we don't, because this is strictly a declarative approach to defining a fixed set of ways to communicate. But I guess you have a point when it comes to how do you communicate with padding or border on top, etc. But still, there are cases where you want to do this. You want to draw a double border around something that's that you want your user to get to draw attention to just that part of the screen, and that's a part of a communication that's data driven, and then it belongs somehow. It's part of the business rules on how to communicate, and then it ends up in the model, or it ends up in a separate document describing all these things that you need to add after you have implemented the model, and that's not as effective as keeping it together.
Hans, I was thinking of that. We have been talking, I think, about the implementation of automatic style changes due to screen size, for example, to implement that as virtual classes, that you add a class, a transient class to your model, and then that model will change depending on the client changes. So it's like communicated into your model that way. And in this case, then, correct me if I'm wrong, Hans, but it would basically mean that you can make expressions in your model that uses these data from your client, and if the client resizes, your model will pick that up, and then those changes will be carried back to the client as font size changes and color changes, or whatever you want to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah.
I would say that be able to read the device size of the client at any time would be interesting.
Mm. It's a bit undefined to me, at least, since there could be many viewers on the same. It could be multiple windows looking at the same exact instance of data, and we don't really know which one. Should we go for the latest, or so that might be a tough one, but definitely we could have the media classes added to the things that we. I'm not sure about this communication thing.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to hide different parts depending on device size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Or change the layout flow from to one column instead of a fixed layout.
Yeah, it's a bit of I don't think we're fully there yet on exactly how to do that in the best way. Some properties that comes from the client that will not change, like their calling IP address and the user agent's type, etc. That we could definitely make available as transient information on the singleton, and if they are there, you could make decisions based on that. And there's maybe a user agent type for a mobile device that you can see, but it's not as easy as that you can watch the screen size, because the screen size changes and you could have multiple views looking at the same thing with different size.
Yeah. But is there any difference to using the sim?
So
You have expressions,
mm,
and you can hide and show things depending on an expression.
yeah, so you could
So,
use
like
that to
window size.
if we were able to communicate the window size. I don't think we can, but I think we can communicate the user agent, and the user agent on a mobile device will be different than on a desktop. So I think that would be one way forward.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then again, my cell phone might have a higher screen resolution than my spouse's laptop, so
Yeah.
it's still complicated.
Yeah. So, but usually we want to do the UIs for phones with less precision and fewer controls on them, etc. Because you're using your fingers most likely, and so.
But I think, isn't it true that most browsers, I mean the phone browsers, don't actually tell you the real pixel number? They tell us like this idealized view of how big it is, more like in
Well, Android seems to be very keen on something they call device pixels,
Mhm.
and that's dependent on some kind of scaling class or something. You can change the scaling on my phone by a little hack from the manufacturer, so how many device pixels I have on my device I can actually change, and browser seems to use that rather than the fixed number of red, green and blue segments on the screen. Yeah.
You should be able to get the DPI though from it.
I think Android uses some kind of DPI classes like the XXX high DPI or whatever silliness I saw recently, because once upon a time phone screens were like 320 by 240 and now they're up to 4K, so the names have kind of grown a bit silly, but I think there are some kind of resolution classes for different intervals of DPI numbers.
Yeah, but this is available to anyone since a few months back, and it's documented on the wiki as well. So if you want to look into the theming, it's I think best to, let's see if we find it straight away. By searching on here's the description of the pattern that you could use without the styling UI and everything, and make this yourself if you want to keep your theme as data in the model. And here's a page describing a lot of the styling and also the list of the changeable properties or the CSS variables that you can set. And there's a few predefined examples there you can play with as well. And what do you say, Dennis? Do we have any more have you reached any conclusions on if we're gonna add more variables that we have in the pipe?
Yes, we can, and as we receive the feedback, really we can add more and more every time for the sizes and other things. So it's not a problem.
Presumably in the styles in model collection of changeable elements, those are pretty limited. You can't go much beyond those. As an engineer, I'm obviously wanting to change, for example, how many decimal places something is. So it's a string format issue. But of course, I'm assuming that's because that's a component down, as it were. It's not at a sufficiently high level to be able to include that in styles in model type of
No, and when it comes to string formatting the strings, we have initially that was combined with the styling, but it was problematic for many reasons. The different technologies, the different modernities had different possibilities, etc. So now they are controlled by tagged values. So there are tagged values to control date, times, and time spans, and number of decimal places, etc. like that.
Unfortunately, tag values you can't, relate to expressions and other things so easily.
Yeah, so that's not easily dynamically changeable. No.
And it's also so multifaceted what you want to do with that formatting, because you usually want to say, I want 2 decimals in the way the country has it, right? So it's like a mixed bag of what you want in your application and what the client has said it wants for country and for date format in general. And then it also depends on the user agent, the browser, if it's on the phone or if it's on a computer, because the browser renders editing of that differently. So we rely heavily on the web, on the Angular implementation of all the different locales and the currencies and all that to get it at least mostly right. So if you view the same application on different browsers, in different languages, with different both language and currency and date format settings, it should show up correctly. But that's why it's such a difficult subject to get to.
Makes sense.
And in VPF we're using, there are string constants taken from the normal C# string constants on string format that, of course, either can be explicit, like saying where you want the year and month and day, or can be language dependent or culture dependent, like a long date format, etc.
One thing that we miss, you could say, but I don't know exactly how to implement it, is that when you do things on the server, you get the server locale, and I don't know if that's the way to pronounce it, but the server settings for language and time formats and stuff. So, ideally, your C# functions should use the client's settings, but ideally, at least in many situations, also, you might use the same functions to create something for your API, and then all hell breaks loose. So,
and also it's interesting to see that the JavaScript specification states that there is no 1000 separator in numbers, and there should always be a dot, never a comma, to denote decimal places. So and then it's really up to the browser to do the magic to adapt a defined number format from JavaScript to something that's acceptable to the end user looking at the screen. Unless you send it as texts, but that has other problems. So, cool. Let me know what you think, and I hope it's okay that I put out the videos of these things, even if you appear in the in view at certain points. And
Yeah, I'm cool with that anyway.
yeah, and hopefully we will get more viewers as time goes by. You never know. You might become a rock star. Or
Well,
something to work on, at least. Yeah. And if you have things that you would like us to cover in these sessions, you are welcome to send us feedback. Not making any promises, but we'll do our best. Otherwise, we will continue and make stuff up as we go.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I was thinking about one thing. Your default values for colors tends to always be black.
Yeah, so
Would it be conceivable to have some kind of a small set of variables? I mean, default color for, say, a background might be something you'd want to have the same value for several types of backgrounds. You were changing 3 different backgrounds to blue, for example. Would it be possible that rather than having the default value to be 0.0.0 be something like color 0, and then color 0 has an RGB value and might be the default value for everything background, so you can kind of get more like tree-like structure, so
yeah,
that you don't have to set light blue in 23 places, and then your colleagues say, hey, we said green. You have to change it again in 23 places, and you get 2 of them wrong, and
yeah. So what we done with this theme editor is just basically what you're asking for in CSS is if a variable could have a variable value initially.
well, yeah, I suppose so. And I will admit right off the bat that CSS isn't my strong side. There might be architectural reasons as to why my suggestion is completely bonkers.
So anyway, if you would like to mangle this model, it's just this ensure theme colors method that's just a bit of hard work implementing. It does a set of all the variable names and makes a difference with the ones we already have, and for each color creates the name from the variable and adds them. And of course it could set a default color as well, or an original color for each theme color.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be all black and it would be all red instead. It's not necessarily better, but it's different. And of course you could do anything or other things like detecting if it contains BG as background, then it would be a light color, and FG for foreground, then it would be, or text as for foreground, then it would be a darker color, to make that to skip make it better from start. But this kind of implementation is easy for us to maintain. as Dennis implements more variables and documents them on the wiki and possibly checks out this model and add them here. And if you go back and import this model again, you will have more definitions here. So
I have a last minute question.
yes.
As I understand it, it's material design. There are material design icons available
Yeah.
when you're styling. If you want to style it like before, put the icon. And that's another way of communicating, not with colors, with the icons or animations. That can be interesting if you're showing how different states. Instead of text, you show icons, or you have a state in progress, you show an animation.
Yeah.
Instead,
So if we take animations as such, that's probably GIF images, and then it would be like an image that you show with a visible expression or something. But when it comes to the icon set that's included in material design, I don't think we have any good way to show those today. But that, I think we should.
I worked with Awesome Fonts, the font Awesome.
Yeah.
They have the capability to animate.
Okay,
that's
there's
not a GIF.
some of the...
So I don't know about the material design, but
You can also like operate with the icons through the like in CSS through the sorter classes,
yeah,
and also change them with the style ref depending on the the state of the data. It's one of the ways that we use to change the icons depending on the state or of the and that's kind of a way that we can you can implement a rather the font awesome or even like material design icons as we have it like installed like as a default on the turnkey. So I guess this is one of the ways like for now.
I will try that, because now I just tried with the font Awesome, and then they change the text font. So if you have a like before style, you will change the actual text font.
Yeah. And that would be one good variable to have, wouldn't it be, Dennis, to have the font name, so that you could change the font name of the application. Let's see, where did I put it?
Font family.
Oh, I'm losing myself with all the... what I mean is, if we were to have a text variable here or a picker with all the possible fonts, and actually we have that in we can set the font properties here, but I'm not sure. So then you could create a new font, and that would be named, that would probably be the material design icon font.
Yeah.
And then you could use that, I guess. I need to research that one. All right, good. Thanks for tonight. We have used up our time, and see you next time, hopefully. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thanks.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye.